This is Batgirl issue 1 by Brian Q. Miller and art by Lee Garbett. This is the start of Stephanie Brown's reign. This was a run that I read, probably maybe a year or two after it was done. Like I think I started reading it just as it was about to end. Actually, I want to say.
So just before the New 52 happened and cancelled the book.
Maybe not just before. Maybe been earlier that year. I can probably early 2011. I'd say is when I read this, and then obviously I didn't finish it until it was done. But the first 2 trades I definitely read around then.
Okay, fair enough.
I can say that. I mean, I'll just say I love this book. I love this issue as well.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't like this book quite as much as you do.
That's
because
fine.
I know just how much you love this book. But I have read this before. I do like it a lot. I think it is a very, very, very good book. And maybe I'll like it more this time. Who knows? It's been a while.
Yeah, so there's like a illegal street race going on. It's been claiming a lot of young guys' lives. Batgirl jumps in, and it's the Cassandra Cain Batgirl outfit. I mean, it's all silhouette at first, but then eventually we see the Cassandra Cain suit, and we hear narration. I mean, I see what I mean. I say here, but like we're reading narration, and we don't know who it is yet. But we cut to like Batman and Robin, and this is Damien because I mean it's just around that time.
Yeah,
and his
and Dick as well.
Yeah, and they're watching and saying, "Oh, who is this? This makes no sense. This doesn't look like Cass." Her fighting style, that is. And we see her like take off the mouthpiece, the sort of stitched mouthpiece of Cassie's cowl, and we see it's not her. And then it sort of ends that page ends with her "Who am I?" And then you turn the page and she's like, "I'm just Stephanie Brown." And the blonde hair is flowing in the wind, so very different. It's very clear and distinct that this is not the same Batgirl that we had before. And from here, I've always kind of sold this book, and Connor will hate this, but I've always sold this as Buffy as Batgirl, because the very next scene, right? The next scene, she's in her bed, her mum comes in with the waffles, and she's talking about her, in her narration, she's talking about how her mum's trying to bond with Waffles, and they're talking about going to university and how, oh, you're giving up like that vigilante thing, you're going to be a normal girl. And all I could hear in my head was Joyce like trying to talk Buffy into doing normal things. And I'm like, this is so what this book is, like in so many ways.
Yeah, I get that. The mother is willfully oblivious is what I will use the phrase here.
Which is
when Steph's like,
I was gonna say I'd also describe Joyce as willfully oblivious.
No, I think that's a fair description. Yeah. Like here, where she's like, she jumps in front of the wardrobe and shuts the door so the mother can't see it. And the mother's like, "It's fine. I'll just leave you to it. Whatever you want." And it's like, well, that wasn't suspicious at all, was it?
Yeah, and the book also sets up its other main character, which is naturally Barbara Gordon, who's talking to Leslie Tompkins about kind of getting out there and helping people. Babs is in kind of a rough place right now, and we see her at this. They're at like a, the wheel. What do you call the wheelchair basketball game? I feel like there's a proper name for it that I'm.
Is there? I don't actually know if there is.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm just assuming there isn't. I don't know it, but I always remember this page actually where Babs gets onto like a train, like the monorail, and like we see these thugs come up behind her. Like, by the way, which like 3 big muscly thugs decide to try and like mug someone in a wheelchair? It's like proper
even
dark.
Even for Gotham, this is pretty low.
Yeah, but the door's shut. We just like it's just black, and what's really good about it is that the blackness of like the lights going out is set up because it's that thing you get sometimes in a train where you're going through tunnels and stuff where it just all goes dark. And it sets it up on the page. It's got a rhythm to it where you get like a thin strip of the the art, then the black, and you hear the punk, which is just the sound of the train or whatever. And then just as it's getting to that bottom one, you hear whack and crack and whatever in the blackness, and then you just see her get out of the train, and you just see some like feet and hands lying on the ground. Like she beat up these 3 dudes from her chair.
She's like, that felt pretty good.
Yeah, she's in a good place. So we see Steph at college. She just started and she's drawing bat symbols on her notepad instead of focusing what she's supposed to do. Because the whole thing is she was supposed to promise not only her mum but also Tim. She mentions that at one point. She promised Tim that she would give up what she was doing. But then she's like, well, technically, I promised to stop being spoiler. I never said anything about not being Batgirl. And we get a flashback of her and as spoiler with Cassandra fighting some bad guys. And Cass gives up the bat symbol because she fought in honor of Bruce, and Bruce isn't here anymore. Because keep in mind, Bruce has just died, recently in this part of the timeline, and she ends up with Cassie's suit. And
yeah, I think it was during this sequence that I realized how used to Cass not speaking at all I've gotten. Because obviously over the course of her book, she grew to be more talkative, talking proper sentences. And then we kind of reset right in the New 52, and when we finally got to her again, and it was like, okay, we're back to the beginning, and we're working our way up still to her being back to this point, but she's still definitely more fragmented than this as of right now.
Yeah. That's one of those runs that I'm looking forward to doing at some point. And the only reason why we didn't pick that as one of the first runs is because we just didn't have enough slots, and we sort of, picked it, like, we wanted this, a variety of books, but I promise you, Cassandra Cain Batgirl run, which is like 80 something issues, is definitely on the short list of runs to do.
Yeah, I've read like the first 2 big trades, I think, and really liked it.
I think that's what I read as well. It was a really easy read as well. It was so good.
It was, yeah.
So we see Babs having lunch with their dad, with Commissioner Gordon. And it's rare in media where you find like a dad try to set up his daughter with someone. Usually it's the mum who does that. The dad usually doesn't want to think about it. The dad's like, no, I don't want to think about my daughter doing. But he's like, no, you need to get out there. Is this new cop that's started? He's like, I hear he's handsome. And she gets a little call from Dick Grayson, which I thought was a nice little touch. Just sort of, again, keeping the things around. And what I like about this is that it's actually a nice little bit of foreshadowing, because it sets up why she shows up at the end to talk to Steph. It's like, because Dick's obviously, look, there's a new Batgirl in town, right? We think it's Stephanie. Like, go and...
Do you want to do something about this?
Yeah, you go and take care of this. This is your kind of, your corner of the Bat world. You go and deal with it.
And the impression is definitely not that Dick's telling her to, okay, make her stop. It's just like, hey, just keep an eye on her, because as they're watching her at the start, it's like, hey, she's just not as good as the previous Batgirl. But that doesn't mean she shouldn't be doing this.
One might say that Barbara's her watcher.
One could say that, but one should not say that. One would be a dick.
I love the next page so much. She's trying to do her homework or whatever. She's like having something to eat as well, and she's basically just convincing herself that I promised Robin, I promised Tim I wouldn't do this anymore. I promised I wouldn't do any of this. That's it. You know what? I'm never doing this again. And she's got like a police scanner on the whole time, and it says that, people are down and immediate assistance required. And she looks out the window and there's a bat signal in the sky, and she's like, well, maybe one more now. Like, I love the running thing of this issue where she keeps telling herself this is the last time, or this is the last thing I'm going to do, but she's constantly drawing bat symbols, or she hears something's wrong, so she's like, no, I'm putting the bat suit on. Like, I love it. And I do love that for this first arc she has Cassandra's suit. Like, it's not like she's got her own suit yet. That's something that comes later with No,
it is a literal hand-me-down, and that's why she's designing her own bat logo. She's like, what would I have on my suit when I get there?
Yeah. And I really like the art, for the record. I think the art's perfect for the tone of this.
I think Lee Garber in general is an underappreciated hero. I've loved everything I've ever seen him do.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fantastic in here, and reading this book again makes me hate the New 52 even more, because this is one of the things we lost. I mean, it would have ended eventually, of course, but like it ended when it did because of the New 52. And
it's one of those things where 24 issues isn't like terrible, right? It's not like the worst. It's like, this would have been frustrating if it was after like 8 or 10. 24 is enough that it feels like it is a run.
Yeah,
but it definitely could have been 40.
Yeah, I could have easily seen this going to 40 or 50 issues, and I'd have loved that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So there's the whole thing. There's this like hostages happen. This new young cop that Gordon was talking about has been held hostage because he went in to talk to these bad guys first, and they've taken him in. And Steph jumps in as Batgirl, and I love this moment here where she, in her narration, says, "Oh, he's pretty." And she says, "Look tough, Steph." And she sort of stands up and folds her arms to like strike a pose to look cool. And then immediately, like, stuff just starts to go wrong.
Because it means that she wasn't paying attention to the rocket launcher.
Yeah. So yeah, the rocket launcher goes off, and she grabs the cop and dives out. And he's like, "Hey, one of the bats helped me. I don't know who you are yet because I just moved here. Which bat are you again?" And she's all, it's just really funny. Yeah. I love it.
It was the unbelievable. Just come on, you should know better than this. It's pretty obvious.
And then she's in, and I love this touch. She's just got out of the shower and she's drawn a bat symbol in the mirror with the steam. She's drawn, she's with her finger.
She's a little bit obsessed right now, and I think that is the bat symbol that's on the suit right now, isn't it?
I think so. More or less. And she's like, "No, I need to say goodbye to this. This was the last time I was doing this. I need to say goodbye." And she looks over at the bat suit as she's brushing her teeth and says, "Maybe I should take up a sewing class."
Yeah.
And so it's like, again, just as she's like convincing herself, "I'm not doing this anymore," she's like, "No, maybe I should take up sewing so I can fix the suit."
Yeah, I appreciate it because we did see a big rip on her leg. I think it was after
Yeah.
she came out the building.
Yeah, so that good storytelling there. And then the final page, the big cliffhanger, is she comes down for breakfast, and Barbara's sitting at the breakfast table saying, hello, Steph. I love how she says, have some waffles at the end.
It sounds really, really sinister, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, it seems your mother got held up at the hospital, something about a riot.
Yeah.
Have some waffles.
Yeah, so it ends with this meeting of like the original Batgirl and Stephanie. I love it because I think what I love about this run is not just that I love Steph as a character. I love the bubbly nature of her, that Buffy-esque sort of attitude or whatever. But it's also the way it uses the universe around her. It's the way it uses Babs as this mentor figure. I love because she was that to Cass as well as too, but this was kind of a different take on it. This was more, because Cass is a very different character to Steph. They're very different in how they came to be.
She doesn't necessarily want the guidance from Babs.
Yeah, but it's going to be this thing where they grow and they bond, and it's going to be all these things. And
yeah, I do like seeing her interact with the wider Bat family as well. I think if I recall, there's a great issue with her and Damien.
Oh, there is. Yeah, that's I think that's in like the third trade. Is
it that far in?
Well, I mean, I'm reading two thick trades now, but the original trades, it was the third trade.
Yeah, I didn't remember it being that far in. Admittedly, I thought it was like issues like between like 8 and 10 or something like that. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I'm sure it was
I remember
later.
loving that issue.
That was a great issue. Yeah. I'm so excited to work through this again. Everything about it, her bubbly attitude, the way she keeps telling herself she's not doing it anymore, and like it happens like 3 times in the issue where she kind of just immediately changes her mind again because something reminds her or whatever. Like everything about it, because I think this issue is really strong because it establishes who the main characters are. Obviously, Steph being number 1, Babs being number 2. Establishes that Commissioner Gordon's going to pop up. This new cop's going to be a factor as well. This is clearly kind of our older love interest that she shouldn't really be even toying with the idea of, but she's going to kind of flirt and have this awkward relationship with. And I think the contrast right now, because we've been reading current Batgirl, which is Barbara, and she's got this relationship right now with Jason Bard, and it's just not working for us at all. It's really tedious and there's no chemistry. The start of this has already got me sold on this will they won't they with them because of her always pretty and like standing up straight to look cool and like failing miserably, like giving her some of this like charming like bumbling kind of like sequence. It makes us so much likable and like valuable in a way that just is really endearing. And then even him, he doesn't come across as a dick. He's genuinely just kind of like, oh, I'm new here, I'm happy to be saved by one of the bats. Because I think one of the things they're overdoing with Jason Bard right now is his hatred of Batgirl and his hatred of the bats. Like he hates it. He really hates it.
Yeah, and that's kind of establishing where he's been in the past, which so it's not our character. It's more just maybe he was the wrong choice to do this with.
That's what I would say. He's the wrong fit for what they're trying to do with him.
Yeah,
but that's what it is.
It's just this reminded me again, like between this and Birds of Prey, Babs was so much better as Oracle that like I'm okay if 5G stuff continues and we smooth out the timeline. If we can just get back to an older Babs being Oracle and not being Batgirl, I'm all right with that.
I mean, I don't even need her to be in the wheelchair. If you want to just do a thing where she's just gotten older and she's decided to step back and be Oracle, and because I think one of the problems we're having with Babs and present day Batgirl, and even though I've liked a lot of what they've done with her since Rebirth, it's been a lot of fun stories, is that it's kind of fallen into the same trap that Barry has right now as well a lot of the time, where they kind of give Barry a little bit too much of Wally's like character or personality a lot of the time. And I feel like with Barbara, they keep giving her like there's a little bit of Steph in there. I mean, not so much Cass, because Cass is so specific and different, but
yeah, I don't think it's quite as bad as what we're doing with Barry and
it isn't. It definitely isn't as bad, but I definitely feel that sometimes where I'm like, I feel like this wants to be a Steph book, but there's just this rule where it has to be Barbara Gordon because she's the first Batgirl, and it has to be Barry Allen because he's the first Flash, and it has to be Hal Jordan because he's the first sort of modern Green Lantern. Like it has to be these things.
No, I get you, especially with Babs, where they've made a young and okay, they want to do that young, youthful look at the book, kind of like what this was, a little bit older, admittedly, like, but kind of in the same vein of. And it's like just put Steph back, and that'll solve your problem. You can just do that book, and no one will complain.
Yeah, we had that book, and it was perfect. And then we had to have Batgirl, and New 52 Batgirl was okay by Simone. It wasn't great.
I think it had its ups and downs. It wasn't bad though by any means.
There was a pretty strong arc with the brother, and that was like volume 3 or 4 of the run. But
like there was some good stuff in there, and it was all right. And then we went into Burnside, which I like more of than you do. That's for sure. It was such a drastically different take that honestly, I think if you put that as Steph or just another new Batgirl, I think would have been really well received, even more well received than it was as Babs doing it. But I think it was a pretty fun book for the most part. It wasn't perfect, but I liked it. And then then we got into Rebirth, and that was immediately much stronger than what had come before. But I mean, again, a lot of it is like this shouldn't really be the Babs role.
Yeah. So yeah, I miss Steph, and it's one of these things where I feel like one of the arguments I hear from people is like, oh, you want to put Babs back in this place, and I'm like, it's not really about that though. It's the strength of Babs. Like there was a strength that she had, and there was a strength that Steph had, and what they've done by changing things is they've taken away Steph's spotlight, so she feels like an afterthought now, and they've given Babs kind of a personality that's not really hers. It's one of those things that comes up whenever we talk about. I was arguing recently about something on Twitter. There was something recently on Twitter. It was about.
There's always places shitstorm.
Yeah, it was basically how, like, the problem I have with like certain like changes to characters is it's more about taking away their strength, and because sometimes like people will say, well, you just want this character to not have this, and I'm like, well, yeah, because they were stronger without it. They were stronger. They were in a better place before. Like, you've done this, like, okay, you might have made this character stronger by giving them the spotlight, but you've done it at the expense of another character. You've done it at the expense of taking away this character's thing.
It's kind of weird to me as well, where people say, oh, you just want to back in the wheelchair. I mean, isn't having someone in a wheelchair be a strong character good representation? Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
Like, she was, in a wheelchair for a couple of decades, and she was a really strong character and grew and still, had arcs, and, it wasn't just, oh, she's just in a wheelchair. That wasn't the story.
No. I mean, people might critique the choice to put her in the wheelchair in the first place because it wasn't really necessarily a well thought out thing. But they took what happened and they made it into something. And a lot of writers over the years have told great stories with her in that wheelchair. But I don't even necessarily need her. If you want to, like, just to still have that retcon, fine, whatever. But like, she had such a great role as being Oracle, and she became this mature figure for these other characters, and these other characters that we love to read about. And reading this Steph story again just reminded me how much I love this, and I've loved what I've read of Cassie's stuff, and I'm looking forward to reading that again. So
it actually kind of goes back to what we've been saying about JSA as well. It's all about that legacy aspect of we can have multiple variations that are different characters, but still having these kind of ideals and similarities. Like I say, I hope if 5G does go ahead in some capacity, and we kind of saw the timeline, if we get the point where Bruce and Clark are older, that should, by its nature, make Babs a little bit older as well. I would hope
it should,
and maybe that will kind of restore it. Maybe they don't put her back in the wheelchair, and maybe they don't want to do that, and I get it. But maybe we can kind of get back to this kind of state of mind and of where she kind of is in terms of being that older mentor.
That's kind of why I was arguing for a long time for a Batgirl's book where you had all three of them, and so Babs was still an active Batgirl, but she was the mentor to the other two. Like, you still have that kind of dynamic. That was kind of my compromise. But
yeah, and honestly, I'm okay with if they want to leave Stephanie as spoiler for whatever reason. Fine. If you want to leave Cass as orphan, fine. Do a new Batgirl. I'm okay with that. Throw in a whole new one. Like, I think they've proven by now that Batgirl as a mantle is certainly changeable enough, right? That we can have a new one without it being like, oh, just another new one. Yeah. And I know Pete's going, oh, but I want Steph. I know.
I want Steph and Cass. My problem is if we introduce a new one again, then they're going to be forgotten about. They're barely going to show up. Steph pops up in a panel here or there in Young Justice. Cass right now is, she's in the outset. She's got a bit more to do.
Yeah, I think that's what you need to do, because I think, like, all right, so we're in 2009. Cass has lost her Batgirl book, and it's been given to Steph, and I bet there's probably Cass fans who are pissed.
Yeah, probably.
But I imagine she shows up in other books, and maybe she's in some team books. I don't know exactly. I don't know.
I don't think there was tons of her showing up as Black Bat, but at least in that case, she got an 80-issue run, right? It wasn't like it was, completely
I get you.
truncated.
It's a fair point to make.
She got to be Batgirl for over a decade almost. Well, just about a decade.
But yeah, again, I'm not saying it's completely fair, but if for whatever reason they're really insistent on we don't want Steph to go back to that, we want her to make her own thing as spoiler. If for whatever reason they want that, fine. I mean, I'd like it if she showed up in some other books as well. Like you say, we got Cass in Outsiders, and while I'm not reading that, that's kind of my choice. That's on me. She's there. I would like that for Steph as well. And you want to give me a new Batgirl? Great, I'll read it.
Yeah,
assuming it's good.
Well, yeah, the one thing I want for Steph actually was because obviously I loved her being a detective, but one thing that frustrated me is that I always felt that she was tied to the fact that she was Tim's girlfriend. There was never like she could just be Steph on her own. So if I want anything from Steph, is I want that.
No, I agree. I think part of that is Tan loves Tim, like really loves Tim.
Yeah.
To an unhealthy degree, which he's pretty open about.
So
the guy used to run a Tim Drake Tumblr, so you know, like I understand why he kind of took that approach. Although I would like, just give us Steph without Tim.
Yeah. Anyway, I love this issue. I am so excited about reading more of it. What are you giving it?
No, I'm gonna give it a 8.5. Yeah, 0.5 for the art.
Yeah, straight 9 for me. I really have very little to complain about in this issue. I mean, this obviously represents a time when I would really get into comics in the sense that, like, I'd been dabbling for trades, but it was really that 2008 to 2010 kind of period where I really started to like. I was still reading trades, but I was buying all the trades and I was jumping around books to try and mimic the single issue reading experience for a lot of things. Not everything, but like all the stuff that was tying into Brightest Day, for example. I made a point of reading around all those books as I was going. I made it
in the correct order.
Yeah, and I was making a point of like reading all the Bat stuff, Batgirl with Streets of Gotham, with Detective Comics, with Batman and Robin, all that stuff together. Doing all the Batman Reborn stuff. Like I really fell in love with a lot of that stuff. Some obviously better than others, but this was one of the standouts with Stephanie Brown Batgirl. So I'm so pumped to be doing this.
From that time period, I think I prefer the Hearts of Hush book by Dini doing that stuff a little bit more than this. I think that was around the same time.
Heart of Hush, that was right before R.I.P. I'm sure.
A little bit earlier, yeah. But that went on, and we had the I think was it Streets of Gotham?
Actually, I think it was during R.I.P. I think that's what Detective was doing when R.I.P. was happening, if I remember right. It was around that, yeah.
Yeah, because there was about 3 trades, I think.
Because Streets of Gotham kind of spun out of that, because Hush was like a recurring thing in Streets of Gotham.
Yeah, so that into Streets of Gotham, I really love that book, that stuff. Probably more than I do this Batgirl. But again, it's that same kind of time period of, where kind of Batman in general was.
You know what's funny? I remember for a long time feeling like I was a new comic book reader because that was my kind of era where I really get into it. And now I'm like, wait, that was over 10 years ago. Now I'm like a veteran now.
Yeah, I mean, now even people who got in at the New 52 are not new readers.
That's true. No. Now it's the Rebirth people who are still the newish readers. That might change again with 5G if that 5G is a thing again. We'll see.
Yeah, I think unless for whatever reason they got in at one of the many Marvel Now 1.2 whatever things Marvel had each 6 to 8 months. If you got in at one of those, then you might be even newer.